Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. President-elect Donald Trump spent the day holed up in Trump Tower in New York, a day after his historic win. Last night, he urged the nation to come together.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me. For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
A deeply divided electorate allowed Trump to take key battleground states that Hillary Clinton was banking on, like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Clinton made her first public post-election comments today. She addressed grief-stricken aides and tearful supporters and acknowledged her stunning loss to Trump.
This is painful, and it will be for a long time. But I want you to remember this. Our campaign was never about one person or even one election. It was about the country we love and about building an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted. We have seen that our nation is more deeply divided than we thought.
Mr. Trump's remarks last night.
President Barack Obama urged Americans to bridge that divide today, saying he spoke to Trump about his win and was heartened by what he heard.
Patriots first. Sometimes you lose an argument. Sometimes you lose an election. You know, the path that this country has taken has never been a straight line. We zig and zag, and sometimes we move in ways that some people think is forward and others think is moving back. And that's okay.
Obama also said whether Democrats or Republicans, we're all Americans first, and ultimately we want what's best for the country. Many in the San Diego-Tijuana region are reacting to Donald Trump's win with fear and uncertainty. Trump has vowed to deport millions of people and make it harder to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Those plans could have an impact around the world's busiest border crossing. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
Tens of thousands of people cross the border through San Isidro every day. Among them is Tijuana resident Isabel Mendoza, who goes shopping in the U.S. She says last night she was glued to her television watching the U.S. presidential election.
Last night I hardly slept. I just kept praying, dear God, please don't let this happen.
She fears the Mexican peso, which is plummeting in response to Trump's win, will weaken so much that she won't be able to afford to buy things in the U.S. anymore. She also thinks Trump will make it harder for people to cross the border when he's president.
Everything is going to get really complicated. The border wait is going to increase with agents asking more questions. There will be more obstacles for us to overcome.
Latinos and other minority groups who live in San Diego are also worried.
And we need to do something bigger and better than what the Republicans or the Democrats have been trying to offer us for decades.
They held a rally at San Diego City College, saying Trump's divisive speech spreads hate and racism against minorities and women. One girl broke into tears as she spoke to the crowd.
I don't want a f***ing rapist in my office.
Some Mexicans at the rally said they fear their parents will be deported. Young black men said they've spent years worried about police shootings and that they think it's going to get worse under Trump.
People are going to think that they could do anything because it's Donald Trump, you know what I mean? And that's scary, you know, being African-American, especially a male around the age of 19, you know.
Diana Gonzalez is a young Latina who was at the rally. She says she was shocked by Trump's win, which she thinks is indicative of hostility towards immigrants and other minorities. She also fears for her safety.
I feel that I can get hurt if I say the wrong thing in front of the wrong people.
Like others at the rally, she's a recipient of DACA, a deportation relief program for young immigrants offered by Obama. Trump has vowed to revoke the program. DACA allowed Gonzalez to enroll in college this year. She's studying English with a concentration in history. Now, she could be facing deportation.
It's sad because, the educational system taught us not to speak Spanish, and now they're going to want me to send me back to a country that I don't know anything about.
She considers herself American and wants to be seen as one.
Your voice are important, and we need to hear you guys speaking against this.
She says rallies like this give her hope that it's not all over for her yet. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Some UC San Diego students are not quietly accepting the election results. Hundreds of them took to the streets last night to protest Donald Trump's victory. They chanted things like, "Not my president." Here's video and pictures captured by a UCSD student. California Highway Patrol says at one point the demonstration made its way to the southbound lane of the 5, where an 18-year-old girl was hit by a car. Authorities say she has major injuries.
Group hug, yes. Have a great day. Have a great day, guys.
A handful of San Diego State students took a different approach to Trump's victory last night, offering hugs to fellow students and passersby on campus. Donald Trump's presidential election has surprised many people, including pollsters. Several polls gave Hillary Clinton a slight but significant majority. Real Clear Politics, for example, had Clinton with a 3.3 lead, while polls for the Wall Street Journal, ABC, NBC, and the Washington Post put Clinton's lead around 4 points. Today, we spoke to Carl Luna, the San Diego Mesa College political science professor, explains what may be lacking in the methodology.
You had an incredibly different candidate in Donald Trump, a different campaign with social media, a different electorate, rural, low-propensity voters coming out in much higher numbers. Meanwhile, people who had voted for the Obama coalition came out in much smaller numbers. All of the models were off, except for a very few, which were seen as outliers. It was a perfect storm against the predictors.
Tomorrow, lawyers for the president-elect will be in a San Diego courtroom for pretrial motions in the class action suit against Trump and Trump University. The plaintiffs claim they were duped into paying as much as $35,000 for real estate training. Trump's attorneys say students who didn't succeed only have themselves to blame. The actual trial is scheduled to begin November 28th. More election news now. North County Congressman Darrell Issa was locked in a tight race with Democratic challenger Doug Applegate. Issa has a slim lead over Applegate in the vote count. He's about 2 percentage points ahead in District 9, which includes parts of San Diego and Orange counties. The future of the San Diego Chargers is unclear now that voters soundly rejected a plan to build a stadium and convention center complex. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
Measure C fell far short of the 2/3 majority required to pass the plan. It would build a stadium with more than $1 billion in public funding. Chargers officials had spent more than $7 million trying to rally support for a proposal that would have raised the hotel tax from 12.5% to 16.5%. KPBS spoke with Chargers owner Dean Spanos at a Yes on C rally this past Friday.
I want to see the support we get or we don't get, and then I'm going to take some time afterwards and evaluate all my options at that point.
Spanos did issue a statement about the future this afternoon. It reads in part, "I'm going to put aside any discussion of our possible next steps until after the season to allow everyone to focus on football and to give my family and me time to think carefully about what's best for the future of the franchise." He continued by saying, "Over the coming weeks, you may hear news about steps that we must take to preserve all of our options, but please know that I don't intend to make any decisions until after the regular season ends." The team holds an option to join the Rams in Los Angeles as early as next season. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says he is still willing to continue working with the team. Even Measure C opponents suggest a deal is possible. The San Diego County Taxpayers Association's Haney Hong says it just requires a different approach.
Anything is possible as long as folks do what we do in San Diego, which is come together as a community, talk about things, and make sure that we deliberate and make sure that all the stakeholders are represented. Measure C, regrettably, was not put together that way.
Measure D, the Citizens Plan, was also rejected soundly at the ballot box. That plan called for an increase in the city's hotel tax, a new funding system for tourism marketing, and restrictions on developments that included Qualcomm Stadium, the Convention Center, and a possible new sports stadium. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A fundamental change in San Diego's elections is underway after Measure K passed last night. The measure requires November runoffs between the top 2 candidates in races for city offices. Before those Candidates would just win outright in June if they got more than 50% of the vote. The yes vote on Measure K got 58%, while the no's got 42%. And Georgette Gomez will be taking District 9's seat on the San Diego City Council. She took 53% of the vote. Candidate Ricardo Flores trailed behind with 47%. Preliminary results show Measure A, the countywide sales tax measure to fund transportation projects, got 57% approval on Tuesday, but it still failed. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains.
Measure A needed a 2/3 majority to pass. That's because of California's Proposition 13, passed by the state's voters all the way back in 1978. Measure A would have raised the sales tax by 0.5% to fund public transit, local infrastructure, highways, and open space preservation. San Diego City Councilman Todd Gloria says Measure A was a centrist proposal and that opposition to it came only from the fringe. He says that 2/3 rule needs to end.
What needs to be changed are those extreme voices that refuse to compromise, and an election system that is rigged to say that even when you have a majority of San Diegans say yes to something, it still fails.
Without the extra tax revenue, projects to expand San Diego County's transportation network are likely to have to wait a bit longer. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It looks like County Supervisor Dave Roberts will keep his seat in spite of a well-funded campaign to oust him. And Measure B was defeated last night. That was the measure to build 1,700 homes west of Valley Center. Here to talk more about those results is KPBS North County Bureau reporter Allison St. John.
Yes, Ebony, incumbent supervisors have historically been hard to beat, but Dave Roberts, the lone Democrat on the board, was vulnerable due to his problems in his office last year. He raised less money than his Republican challenger, Encinitas Mayor Kristen Gaspar, and was the target of negative TV ads launched by independent PACs hoping to oust him. But he is still squeaking by with a win.
I think I stayed focused on what my constituents wanted me focused on, and that's quality of life issues. You know, they're concerned about quality of life. They did not want overbuilding in their neighborhoods. They wanted less congestion. They wanted more open space.
This issue of open space and development showed up in other results last night, specifically Measure A. That's the Lilac Hills project. The measure lost even though the developer spent up to $5 million on TV advertising to pass it. Here's Mark Jackson, co-chair on the No on B campaign.
The voters in San Diego County wouldn't let an election be bought. The measure didn't provide affordable housing and moved a lot of cost for roads and fire service to taxpayers, and the voters were smarter than the deceptive advertisement.
Now, the Yes on B campaign was conspicuously absent last night, but Jerry Sanders, the Regional Chamber of Commerce CEO, put the results in a bigger context.
No, I don't think people have come to grips in San Diego County with the fact that if we don't build housing, number one, it's going to be too expensive for their children to live here. Number two, we're going to have much more traffic on our freeways because people are going to move to Temecula. And number three, there has to be more housing built in this county.
Encinitas also defeated a plan for new development last night. So this election is posing the question if people want to preserve some countryside but are not willing to build in existing cities, where can we grow in the future? I'm Allison St. John reporting. Back to you, Ebony.
For the full list of all election results from the national to local races and what they mean, you can visit kpbs.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour. Full analysis and reaction to the election of a new president. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
The Marine Corps says 2 of its fighter jets collided mid-air off the coast of San Diego today. They were a pair of FA-18 Hornets out of Miramar. Both pilots are safe. One landed at North Island Naval Base and the other was able to eject safely. Both pilots were taken to a hospital for observations. They're in stable condition. There's a red flag warning up for much of San Diego County until tomorrow afternoon. Wind, high temperatures, and low humidity add up to critical fire weather for the valley. Today's high temperatures in San Diego matched a record set in 1956. There's also a surf advisory in effect until tomorrow evening. Big waves closed the Ocean Beach Pier today. Some of those waves could get up to 11 feet high. Shanae Shocker has more about the weather in San Diego.
I really cannot believe how hot it was today around the area. Los Angeles in the mid-90s, in San Diego County also very warm, the upper 80s, lower 90s for today. Now, as we head into tonight, 64 degrees for our low. We'll keep the clear skies as, unfortunately, that area of high pressure bringing those offshore breezes keeps those clouds in that marine layer out of our county. So take a look what exactly we're seeing for tonight. San Diego, 64 degrees, 51 in Oceanside, 55 out towards Ramona, 55 in Borrego Springs as well. Mount Laguna, we're sitting at 46 degrees, and down in Campo, just slightly warmer at 56. Now, as we head towards our Thursday, once again, we'll have that offshore flow. That's making for extremely warm conditions, or not even warm, actually extremely hot conditions around the county as well as up north towards Los Angeles. Warmer conditions for the deserts as well. Now, this area of high pressure slowly shifting inland. That's going to bring us a break over the weekend from the warmer conditions. So Thursday looking to be one of our last hottest days. Along the coast, we're looking at temperatures in the mid-80s and our lows still slightly chilly. So our evenings will be quite nice. And check this out. For the end of your work week in towards your weekend, beautiful weather. Sunny and nice as well. Not seeing any precipitation, unfortunately, for the drought. We'll be back in the upper 70s for your Saturday and Sunday, and 80 degrees back as we head towards Monday. Now, inland, this is where we really start to see that warm weather continue. It's going to be sunny and hot for your Thursday. We're in the 90s. Now, after Thursday, that high pressure sinks eastward just enough that we begin to see a temperature drop, which is a very nice break. So still going to be warm. We're sitting in the mid to upper 80s, but come Saturday, the beginning of your weekend, we'll see much cooler and nicer weather. We're back in the mid 80s. Overnight lows will maintain in the upper 40s to lower 50s, so that's looking like a good time to get outdoors. In the mountains, though, whether we have an onshore breeze or an offshore breeze, it seems this time of year at least that we have great weather. We're in the 70s across the board for the end of your work week and towards your weekend as well. But these overnight lows, they're starting to get slightly uncomfortable. You're sitting near freezing for much of the week or of the weekend and in towards next week as well. Now, out in the deserts, continuing to be warm as well. However, it's not nearly as warm as the coast, where it's still sitting in the upper 80s for your Thursday and Friday. Brilliant sunshine remains as usual for this time of year. That area of high pressure keeping things dry will drop down into the mid 80s by Saturday and Sunday. And towards Monday, it's going to continue to be very warm. For KPBS News, I'm Shanae Shocker.
Deportations hit a 40-year high under the Obama administration, for more than 400,000 immigrants being removed each year. That often means getting separated from loved ones, but a small binational community along the border in New Mexico works hard to keep families connected. Frontera's desk reporter Simon Thompson brings us this report.
Daylight hasn't even broken, and these students are up and on their way to school. But it's not your typical commute. To get to class, these students have to cross an international border. For these 500 or so students from the tiny Mexican town of Palomas, the crossing is just part of their daily routine. They show their US passports and birth certificates, customs and immigration officials inspect their school bags, then they're bused to school in Luna County, New Mexico. Lizette Preciado is a senior at Deming High School in Luna County. A US citizen, she's lived in Palomas with her parents for 7 years.
Well, it's good to be able to go to school over there. Like, there's more opportunities to study and to have a better job in the future.
Lizette and her family moved to Palomas from Colorado after her mother, Rosa Maria Preciado, was deported for being in the country illegally.
Pues muy mal porque tenía mis 4 hijos.
I felt bad, really bad, because I have 4 children who are citizens of the United States, and my husband is a resident. I didn't want to go back to live in Mexico. I know it is my country, but life in Mexico is really hard.
Preciado and her husband Ramon make their living in Palomas raising goats. Ramon still crosses occasionally back into the US to work, but for someone like Preciado, who's banned from entering the country, this is about as close as she can get to her old life in Colorado. Though deported, Preciado says having her children educated in the US was important to her, and that's why they settled in Palomas.
De hecho, yo llegué a Palomas por una amiga. Ella me dijo que Palomas.
I came to Palomas because of a friend who said Palomas would be a good option to live with my children. It is easy to cross into the United States, and there's a bus to take them to school.
Armando Chavez is the principal of Columbus Elementary in Luna County. Every year, his school welcomes students and families from all over the country. Tennessee, Utah, Illinois. Chavez says they usually see an influx of students when states enact strict immigration laws, as Arizona did in 2010.
We're sometimes the holding spot for them to fix the papers correctly. We're dealing with children that come from South Dakota, Missouri. I mean, it can be any state that come, but we embrace our children that come to our door every day.
School districts in Texas and California also allow students living in Mexico to come to school, but they often charge out-of-district fees or are private. For the students coming from Palomas, their education is free. Despite a 10-foot high border fence that separates them, the ties between Luna County and the community of Palomas run deep. From businesses to culture to marriage, many teachers in the Luna County schools cross the border as students. Ricardo Gutierrez teaches 5th grade at Columbus Elementary, the school he attended as a child.
So now it's my turn to give back to the community.
Gutierrez says keeping parents engaged in their children's education is the biggest challenge. He opens his restaurant in Palomas for parent-teacher conferences via Skype. And for this year's graduation ceremony, he hosted a live watch party for parents that couldn't cross. But not everybody living in the Luna County area thinks that state money should be used to educate students who don't live in the United States.
That forces the state of New Mexico to pay for their education, as well as those of us that are taxed in Luna County to pay for them too.
Luna County Republican Chair Russ Howell says allowances like the one being made by the school district motivate people to exploit birthright citizenship.
They're getting a free education because her mother decided to give birth in the United States rather than back in Mexico where they live.
The New Mexico state constitution requires public schools to be open to all the children of school age, regardless of residence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Principal Chavez says if there are concerns about students not paying their fair share, that is more reason to make sure they're getting a good education.
They're going to more than likely live in the United States. We want to educate them. We want to get them to the highest level of education possible so they can be successful and so they can become productive members and contribute back.
Es ingeniero.
Rosa Maria Preciado says her 3 oldest children are already making their contributions. Her oldest daughter serves in the US military and her 2 sons have careers in engineering and manufacturing.
Estoy muy orgullosa porque yo sé que tengo mucha familia.
I am very proud because I have a lot of family and almost none of their children graduated from anything, not even high school. And I have 2 that graduated and they have careers. That has made me really proud and it has given me a lot of happiness.
But that success has taken Preciado's children far away from Palomas, and her youngest Lizette is soon to follow. She has plans of studying engineering at Colorado State. Preciado hopes an immigration pardon waiver she's eligible for in 2 years will allow the whole family to reunite in the US. But there are no guarantees. For the Fronteras Desk, I'm Simon Thompson.
As the country heals from what some political experts call one of the most divisive campaigns in U.S. history, students in Sweetwater Union High Schools are making strides towards inclusion. The school district held an assembly to celebrate students with disabilities. Officials hosted a basketball contest featuring players from Montgomery High School and San Ysidro High School. The teams included students with special needs.
The students with disabilities feel a part of the school, while the students without disabilities who were in the stands are able to see that those students are just students just like them who want to have fun and score a basket and run up and down the court like them.
Program leaders say the goal is to show how students of different backgrounds can work together. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.